Hello, everybody. Yes, here we are. I am going to make sure that we are pinned. There we go. Welcome, everybody, to the July webinar.
Still traveling?
We are still traveling and we are always in a new location. It's like, where in the world is, our Nicole and Lisa?
Reporting for all manner of undisclosed locations.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a big secret.
It's nice to see you all.
So we'll give everybody another minute to
roll
come
in,
in.
yep.
Just keep admitting people. And then we will get started.
Yeah, so today we are in a format where you just need to remember that you will stay muted because we have, as you hopefully know, been collecting questions in our private Facebook community. So we've collected your questions. There's no need to put them in the chat, but we always encourage you in the chat to talk amongst yourselves. We will be, you'll see me looking off to the side a little bit because I have the questions to my left. So hopefully that will not make you think that I'm distracted in any way. I'll be reading the questions. I will not be texting friends. I'll be reading the questions and then we'll sort of do it in a quasi interview format where I'll ask the questions aloud. One of us will start to answer them. Mostly you will start to answer them because I'll be interviewing. And we will get through all of these questions. And it's exciting because it's one of our favorite topics and one of the ones that is always, I think, a burning question for people. It's a JournalSpeak deep dive today.
Yeah.
And there's always this sort of underlying feeling or wondering, am I doing it right? Am I doing it as deeply as I could be doing it? Am I doing it at the right time? Am I doing it frequently enough? When will it work? All of these questions. So we're going to really go into a deep dive and hopefully everyone walks away feeling a little bit more confident about the process. I know that everyone here has some familiarity with JournalSpeak, has at least heard the term, and knows that it is somehow integral to this work, which it is. But I think that it never hurts to explain how it connects to the other legs of the stool. So as you know, the work is 3 legs of a stool. There is the believe part, which involves the brain science and understanding how the mind-body system works. Then there is the do the work, which is JournalSpeak and all of its companions, inner child work. What are the other on our hit list of little plugins to JournalSpeak, ways into JournalSpeak?
Writing the letter you'll never send, asking questions, sort of what I call experiments in truth or investigations into truth. Like, is this true for me? Is this true for me? All the things
somatic tracking, all the ways in which we get ourselves prepared to do our JournalSpeak. And then the third, of course, which is patience and kindness for yourself, all the self-compassion work. So at the center of this is the JournalSpeak tool. And I do want to start today with kind of an overview of the why we JournalSpeak. How does it connect to the brain science? Because the more you understand that, the more intention you will bring to the practice. And the way in which JournalSpeak is different than journaling, just by someone who doesn't understand what we do here, is that you are intentionally rewiring your brain when you understand how JournalSpeak functions to do so.
Through the lens of the brain science.
So do you want to do a little overview of that first?
I'll just do a tiny primer, just so I said to Lisa, the best way to get into this is to remind you why it is so essential. And when you are having that kind of in your mind, that is a great way to take in the information via these questions. So just a quick primer. We are human. We are living in the human condition, having a human experience. And that involves big feelings. It involves the big feelings left over from childhood, the triggers, the stuff that is attached to ways that we still interact with the world today, but the seeds were sown as young people. There's daily life where we've got our families and our work stress and money and relationships and kids and self-worth and pain, all of those things. And of course, our very personalities. We can be perfectionistic, goodist, self-critical, keeping ourselves in an impossible standard. All of these things are inputs for what we call the emotional reservoir. It's an imagined reservoir that lives inside of you that, when these feelings are not vented, starts to overflow. And when it starts to overflow, the brain senses danger. Just like if there were a predator on the savannah and the herd all looks up, as soon as this reservoir overflows with all this input that I just talked about, the fight or flight signal goes off. And then the pain signals, the muscle constriction, spasm, inflammation, neuropathy, allergic reaction, autoimmune flare, et cetera, is sent. And when it is sent, the way that the human functions is you're more comfortable. You're more comfortable when you have something that you can conceptually control. You can go to doctor's appointments, you can cancel plans, you can research your condition. And that is where, through the lens of brain science, the brain likes us to stay, because the brain seeks familiarity. It seeks habit, it seeks predictability, and it seeks familiarity. So the reason we journal speak, all that to say, is to dip a ladle into the emotional reservoir and dump it out. Because when we can bring it down, the pain signals stop firing. The pain signals are only a response to the nervous system thinking we're in danger. I think it's a good place to start.
We'll never know what they think until later. Okay, so hopefully that lays some groundwork for the why of Journal Speak, and we can get into some of these great questions that you asked. So thank you to all who participated in this, and just know that this is kind of, I think, what we will be doing on a monthly basis. We're going to be seeding the topic with you as a group to make sure that these topics, maybe even voting on topics, to make sure that these topics are in fact representative of what you all would like more clarity around. And then we will allow you to ask all your questions in the Facebook group. We will compile them, categorize them, and then we'll feature them in these monthly boot camps.
Yes. And so if for whatever reason you aren't signed up for our Nicole Sachs Support Circle Facebook group, do sign up there, because that's where the polls are going to be listed.
And reminder, it's of course a private Facebook group.
Yes, only members of the community can see it.
Okay, so you ready?
I am.
Okay. So, can you give a detailed description of what to write about for Journal Speak? Is our first question.
Okay. What to write about is less important than you think, but I know that you need a rubric. So of course we can start with Dr. Sarno's original pillars: childhood, which could be past stressors, daily life, and personality. Oftentimes, it's just easy to start with making some bulleted lists. What are some things that stick out from your past that you just know there's some juice left to squeeze out of them? What are some things in your daily life? I like to say, list every member of your family, list every situation that you think you feel conflict about, and then get really, really petty and list all of the things that happened. Let's call it last week, or that you're anticipating for next week, that are just renting real estate in your head. So that's the bullet list for daily life. And personality, it's a shorter list because we don't have infinite personality characteristics, but it's more like, like I said, are you a perfectionist? Do you care deeply what other people think? Are you codependent? Do you need other people to be okay for you to be okay? Are you an overthinker? Do you worry a lot? Nothing is the wrong answer and nothing is the right answer. Just getting it down on paper. It's almost like, I call it like when you do Google Earth and you rise up and you can look at a whole landscape. You just want to be like, okay, welcome to me. There's no judgment, but here I am. This was the shit that went down in my childhood. Here's the stuff I'm dealing with every day, and it's always evolving. And here's the who I am. Here's the personality, the lens through which everything is filtered. And so in doing that, you can just get a place to start. Having said that, I can't say this enough. There is no wrong way and there is no right way. If indeed you can't stop thinking about that conversation you had with your sister, I promise you, starting there for your journal speak that day will take you everywhere you need to go. We have to start where the fire is burning. We have to remember the whole analogy, which is The fire is burning. The firefighters get there and they start dousing the fire alarm, which is the headache, the stomach ache, the fibro, the autoimmune flare. They're dousing the thing that's making all the noise. But if you want the fire to go away, you have to turn the hose toward the fire. And we start with curiosity. We start with, what might be in there? Why is it freaking bothering me that she said that? And so you start like a court reporter. I said this, she said this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll play the role that I always play, which is to say, if these lists and this, rich history of Dr. Sarno through to Nicole's evolution and creation of JournalSpeak helps you, if it helps you to have this rubric, then great. If those are your thought starters, great. We also provide those thought starters in text to you weekly. They are laid out really, really well in Mind Your Body,
Yeah.
Nicole's book. I always suggest that people, read the book because it lays all of it out perfectly. But what I also want to remind everyone is that I don't use the lists. I mean, I think that it's the way I think of it is kind of artists learn to draw so that they can then abstract. And if you are someone who requires a list and does better with that structure, then great. If you're someone who has a lot going on and knows, has topics that are renting real estate in your mind all the time, I would say lists could bog you down and you want to get right into it.
Some people just start with the list just to do the activity of the lists and don't end up using them.
That's right. So it's useful to go through it and take an inventory of all of the inputs to your TMS. But I don't think that it's something that you need to refer to all the time to get into your JournalSpeak.
No, it's a choice. It's one way. It's one way. It's not the way, it's a way.
Yes. Anything more on what to write about?
The only thing I'm going to emphasize is there is a layer of this process that is the best version of faith, which is an openness, which is I'm going to start writing about what occurs to me, and I'm going to stay open with compassion to where it needs to take me, and allow there to be an energy that is the energy that connects us all, human compassion. Allow it to take you. Sometimes I start writing about something that happened with my child and I am right back to my own childhood and I'm telling a story 5 minutes later in my JournalSpeak that has nothing to do with where I started. So
yeah,
trust the process.
I think that's a really good point. I think very rarely is it going to end with what you're conscious of and where it began. Like you might be angry at someone and that might get you into the courtroom reporting of what's going on in your mind, but you may not find and likely will find, some number of minutes into the JournalSpeak that's just the trigger and that you're going to start to excavate what's underneath it and the richer and what people are always looking for, this sort of what they call the deeper, more emotional JournalSpeak is beneath it. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get back to this idea of like, is it emotional enough through a question later? So I'm going to put a pin in what I was about to say.
Great.
The next question is, can we JournalSpeak about the pain itself? Mm-hmm. For example, in the present life column, can we have a list of our symptoms?
Okay. So here's what I'll say about having a list of your symptoms. You can't not write about what's going on for you. So if your symptoms are taking up your entire worldview, you have to write about them. But you have to write about them in the right way, which is, what are they trying to tell me? So if you spend your whole JournalSpeak being like, it's a burning, but it's a burning and it kind of moves from here to there, and sometimes it gets worse, it's kind of a waste of your time. But if in your JournalSpeak you say, there's a burning inside of me, there's a burning in my gut. What is burning in my gut? Why do I keep having this feeling? I hate it. I'm so sad. I'm so scared. That's
why burning? What is burning? Like, when's the first time that I felt this burning? What might burning signify? How might it be a metaphor for something?
How was I burned in a relationship, right? Or
I mean, that's all really rich stuff. So there's no like, you should not write about a symptom, but it should feel at some point boring to talk about the what and not get into the why.
Yes.
Right? Or the how.
Or just the content.
Came, right?
Yeah. Like oftentimes, like I think I told this story, I don't remember where, but I had some wrist pain before I left for this trip to go see my mom. And I remember thinking that I felt my wrist throbbing. I was laying in bed trying to go to sleep and it was like throbbing like this. And I remember thinking of it saying to me, do
Yeah.
you need me? Do you need
help.
me?
You
Like,
need help.
do you right? Do you need me? Do you need help? Like, do you need something to focus on so you don't have to think about whatever big feelings you have about whatever? And I remember feeling compassionate toward my body, that it was giving me this choice.
And the cuteness of it coming from a hand. Do you need a hand?
Right.
Right? I mean, I always find it very cute that I will get a tingling sensation in my tongue. And generally, what I will find from my journal speak is that there's something that needs to be said that I'm not saying. And I'm a fan. I know that there's not a direct correlation between body parts and
Sometimes, but not
and
always.
why,
Yeah.
but I do think that it's a great way to start, and it always is a rich writing experience, I think, to do the letter to, from your hand to you, from the pain to you, or, your hand, what are you trying to tell me?
Yeah. So basically what Lisa's referring to is a good practice. It's a good thing to try, which is if you want to write about your symptoms, what you do is you connect with your symptom, whatever it is, welcome it, have a little convo at the beginning, and then say, I'm here. I'm totally non-judgmental. What are you trying to say to me? Because you're screaming through my body. I don't like it. What are you trying to say to me? And see what happens. That's why there's a faith piece, because you have to go into it with curiosity.
Yeah. And what is my foot hurting, going to prevent me from doing, and why might I not want to do it?
Right. Like we've had people who have foot and ankle pain, and it's like they're scared to step into the next phase of their lives. Or I find oftentimes burning mouth is associated with what you're not able to say. So like Lisa said, it's fun
Worth
when
exploring.
when it's worth exploring. It's worth exploring.
For sure.
Okay.
Similar question. How do I feel and connect to my feelings? How do I let them go? What does it mean if I'm not feeling my feelings? How do I uncover old ones? And why have my symptoms gotten worse? Sorry, these are all similar questions to each other. That was my note. How do I feel and connect to my feelings? Should we start there?
Yes.
Because they're similar, but they're quite different actually in terms of the answers.
Okay. How do I feel? Connect to my feelings.
How do I
Did you want to?
how do I
did you want to
feel
start with that?
and connect to my feelings? Why don't you start and then I will layer in, because
Okay.
I do have thoughts.
Okay. So it's how do I feel? Yes, how do I feel? How do I connect to my feelings? Okay.
Yes.
So the first thing that comes up for me when I hear this question is there is no try, which I think is a line from Star Wars, wherever the Yoda is. I'm the worst because these are not my type of movies, but there is no try, right? So like stop helping, stop trying, stop connecting to your feelings. Be an open, curious vessel and start writing. So the biggest barrier, I think, is when people think they have to do something. And we're so wired to judge ourselves, right? Did you do it right? Have you completed it? Do you have the A? Blah, blah, blah. So I think the first thing I want to say about this question is you don't have to connect to your feelings. You just have to show up. You have to show up with belief and patience and kindness for yourself, show up to the page with consistency. When resistance comes into the room, say, I've been expecting you. Obviously, I'm resistance. Resistance is just like another symptom. And as you do that, the feelings will arise. And so the second answer to that question is let them. We are hard programmed to shoo away our feelings when they're uncomfortable. And that's where the stay comes in. That's where the feeling comes and you think you want to feel it, but when it feels like an ache and when it feels like a gut punch, your natural reaction will be to kind of try to shoo it away. So I think it's more about not trying to feel anything. And when it comes, gently invite it in. Say, there's infinite room on the kindergarten carpet. I'm going to scoot over, dread, have a seat. You make me a little nervous, but I know we're all here together, whether I look at you or not. You're in here. So have a seat and let's start a little conversation, you and me.
Yeah, I think JournalSpeak is one of the best tools that I have found for this idea of how do I know what I'm feeling? How do I connect to my feelings? Because everyone has feelings. That's what we're pushing down all the time, hence the reservoir. But how do I get in touch with them? How do I know what I'm thinking? That is the act of journal speak. That's why we write our thoughts. In the writing, we learn what we're feeling.
Yes.
We see how we think about it. And for me, journal speak is a tool that teaches me about myself and what those feelings mean and how far back in time they go. And in learning more about the origin of them and really exploring them first from the top level layer of, I'm a courtroom reporter. I'm pissed. Like this person said something, it really fucking made me angry. Like, and then asking, why am I angry? Why do I feel this way? What does this, remind me of? Like, why does it annoy me that I can't, that I have to repress my reaction? My authentic reaction gets shoved down because we are taught from such an early age that in order to belong, in order to be accepted in order to stay part of the tribe, in order to not be rejected by your family, that you cannot tell your parents how you feel all the time. You can't tell them, fuck off. You need them. You have to be polite. You have to be respectful. And then you go to school and you're taught the same thing. Like you have to respect authority. And then in life, you're taught that you have to, not show your authentic reactions because people won't want to be around you and you won't be able to get along in community. And I think that journal speak is the best tool for understanding the through line, the kinds of things that you have been patterned to repress and why. And the reason that you want to understand the pattern and the feelings is so that the next time it comes up, you don't have to have the same unconscious reaction. So we become conscious of our patterns of reaction so that we can make different choices later on, so that we don't go through blindly where the nervous system has to notice that's a predator, that's too, scary to feel and send the pain into our bodies. But we also don't have to blow up our relationships by being unconscious of our reactions.
I mean, and that's such an important point, and it really goes beyond pain cessation. Obviously, our primary purpose here is to get you out of pain, right? You want to just like have chronic symptoms in the rear view, and I am more than certain that that's possible for you. But what Lisa's bringing up is something that's tends to be even more of a euphoric end when I interview people on the podcast, which is, I thought I was only doing this for pain, but I realized I had no idea I was sabotaging my relationships with the people I love most because I was completely unaware that I had any control over my patterns. And that is another thing that Journal Speak will give you in spades, which is the self-reflection. It doesn't just give you an opportunity to do something differently. It removes the trigger. It removes the raw moment of reaction and replaces it with a pause where you say, I see, normally this really pisses me off and I usually just go right at it. That's about me and feeling abandoned. Okay, I can pause and and it happens so naturally. So it's all such good stuff.
And journal speak is also the practice at that. So the more you get to know what triggers you and why, the more able you're to see it in the field, in real life happening, and the more you're able to practice changing your reaction. And then the virtuous circle of it all is that the more you slightly change your reaction and play with changing your reaction to that trigger, to that person, to that situation, whatever it may be, the more you will start to see that the equation at the end changes, the dynamic between you changes. You don't have to change that person. You likely never will. Maybe they will change as a result of your changing, because when they're not getting the exact same energy from you, they may change. But the fact is that just by your changing, the dynamic will change, the energy around it will change. You could do the same thing with your physical pain. We're talking about an emotional example. And by practicing, you will find that the emergent property is released. And I think that that
Yes.
is in the answer. That is the final stage where everyone's like, when do I get the release? I've been doing the journal speak. When will it work? It really is the little by slowly.
It's the little by slowly, and I think we actually have a question about this, so I don't
Yeah.
want to overstep. So, okay, I'm gonna leave it at that.
But
Well, I know that one of our questions today was about, I've been doing this for 6 months.
Oh,
and I have,
yeah.
yeah, so let's
Okay.
move on and we'll.
okay. I'm going to stay within this realm though of what does it mean if I'm not feeling my feelings? How do I uncover old ones?
It's the same answer.
I know.
It's
but
just
they're
show up. I really think that the problem is that, and it's not a problem, it's such a natural human way to behave that like we want the directions, and that's why I love the book Operating Instructions about raising a child, because it's such a joke. Like, yeah, you bring a baby home and like all we ever want is, okay, give me the freaking handbook. I want to just do this right so I have a great person at the end. And there's no such thing really as operating instructions for a human, and there's no such thing really at how to get to it. You have
But
to
everyone wants to know how to let it go. Like they want to know how to get there, but also like how do I let it
Show
go?
up.
How do I get the release? How do I get through my pain? I'm doing this thing. When is it going to work? Like that sits at the base of all of these questions. And I mean, from my perspective, like obviously the more fiercely we want something to happen, ironically, the worse our symptoms become because we're tightening, we're holding, we're gripping, we're clinging, we're doing all the things that we're told are at cross purposes with what we want, which is opening the fist and releasing. So I think just beginning to notice that, getting better at seeing when you're doing that, and just practice at a little bit of noticing it and letting your nervous system know, letting your brain know that you are aware.
you're doing it. Okay, so I'm gonna reference just a moment about radical acceptance. For those of you
Yes.
in the Heal with Nicole group, our community call this past weekend was on radical acceptance. And so Lisa and I were talking about it afterward, and I do think this is a good metaphor for those of you who are asking these type of questions. I want you to picture if you went to a gym and you hired a trainer and you said, I want 6-pack abs, okay? Now, the first thing the trainer is going to do, perhaps, is going to teach you the machines, is going to teach you a routine, is going to give you a list of things that you have to do. And next, if it's a good trainer, they're going to take a look at what you're starting with. They're going to take a look at your body type. They're going to take a look at how long you've been away from the gym. And they might say to you, realistically, these are the things you need to do. And this is what you're working with. And you're also, I know I am also realistic about the things that I can and can't do, meaning it's not just about my effort. To some extent, it's about my genetics. Things will be easier or harder for me. So this is the way this metaphor works for you. You're coming into JournalSpeak and you've lived a life. You lived a life that involved capital T, little t trauma, death by 1,000 paper cuts. We've all been there. You've also lived a life through the lens of your personality, meaning maybe you're really highly sensitive, or maybe you are a gentle soul and everything just makes you feel, animals and the climate, everything gets to you. Or maybe you're actually quite strong and like you're able to plow through certain things. Whatever it is, there's the you of it all, and then there's what happened to you, okay? There's your body, and then there's the instructions at the gym, and it all comes together. But the reason I'm telling you this about such a basic physical thing as fitness is that you wouldn't necessarily ask the trainer, how long is it going to take for me to get these abs? Because what you would know is you're working with what you're working with, and here's the plan. And if you just release the need for the when and just show up consistently, kind of unemotionally, like you're going to do what needs to be done, and then you're going to move on for the rest of your day, that one day in the future, you're going to be like, wow, I kind of see a difference. That's what this is. We are so tempted to say when, how, tell me how to release, when the real answer is, here are the instructions, you know who you are, wear it all really loosely, and take the journey. That's what radical acceptance is. It's here I am. I have come upon an answer that works for a lot of people. I believe in it. Now I'm just going to left foot, right foot, breathe, and do the work. These questions are normal and they're common. but they're not necessarily the questions you need to ask. What you really need to ask is, where's my resistance coming from? Why can't I show up every day? What's getting in my way? How much am I urgently holding on to outcomes? Where am I not believing that I have TMS? Does my mind keep wandering to, do I need one more MRI? Those are the questions that will keep you, the answers to which will help you move forward.
Sure. And obviously, and in what ways does my continuing to have the same reactions keep me falsely safe?
That's another really big one.
Like the devil I know. Like I'd rather not be surprised. I'd rather not live in the uncertainty. I'd rather just continue to show up exactly the same way, because at least I know what I'll get when I do. I mean, I think there's a lot of that inertia.
How is my pain serving me? We've had a lot of people, especially at Omega, when we're really intimate and we're in person, say, I think I'm holding on to my pain. I think it helps me get attached to my mother. I think it helps me ask for help. I think I'm scared of what my family will expect of me if I don't have migraines. Like, these are the questions. These are the ones to sit with your JournalSpeak with compassion, because we all feel them.
Yes. I mean, I can continue to read them. I know that a lot of them are going to sound the same, but at least I think that for the community, it makes you feel less alone to see that everyone is circling the exact same questions. We don't have to answer each one of them one by one, but I'll just read a few. How do I connect with my emotions? I hold things in and have a hard time releasing emotions. For as long as I can remember, I always felt that showing emotions was weak and held it in. I think I could feel better if I could just break down and cry, but I can't. Right?
So actually, I do have a little add-on to that. Okay, so you guys have potentially heard me talk about if you rescue the puppy and you bring him home to your house. So the little scenario is you rescue the puppy, you bring him home to your house, you know your house is safe, you know that he is loved, he potentially has been through a lot, he does not. So you come home the first day, you release the puppy from the crate, he goes under the bed. Now here you are saying, well, this is silly. He should come out. So the puppy in this scenario is your nervous system, okay? It's not sure if you're safe. So what do you do for the puppy? The same as the little prince did for the fox. You show up every day.
Same time.
You sit quietly. At the same time, you hold the treat in your hand and you wait. And maybe on the first day, the puppy just sticks his nose out from under the bed. And maybe on the second day, he comes out, looks around, and runs back. And maybe on the third day, he grabs the treat out of your hand, but he goes right back. On one of the days when you consistently and lovingly show up to your JournalSpeak, you are going, I mean, I get emotional telling the story because I'm there with you. You will start to cry and you will start to just feel it and you'll say, I'm safe enough because I've consistently shown up for myself enough. And that is how it works.
And then I'll just give a little practical JournalSpeak hack that I use when people say, that they can't access their emotions, they can't really get as deep as they want to. And I get in a conversation with them, I say, well, do other people when do you get emotional? It's always like, some form of when I watch a movie or when I hear poetry or when I see an Instagram, something put really poignantly. And that has given me this notion that we need to be able to create that same third person experience with our own story. And I started to read my JournalSpeak aloud for that reason. I read it aloud after I'm done, and it gives me enough distance to see my own story in the same way that I would see poetry or an Instagram post or a TV show or a book, like with a little bit of distance, and have that same feeling of empathy for the teller of that story. And oftentimes I will cry, and in that crying, there is a release. And I think that is often what you are looking for when you ask us, how can I go deeper? How can I feel the emotion? I want to feel my feelings. So that's just a kind of a practical hack.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I remember back in the day when I used to want to feel things, I would just put on the saddest music. I would JournalSpeak to my most angsty music. Every answer is right if it feels right to you. The only wrong way to do it is not to do it.
And I will say that I think that the thing that gets us when we do cry or when we do feel like a really strong sense of human connection to somebody else's story is when we see the truth in it, the deep, universal human truth in it. And as you journal speak, as you show up and tame that fox, as you show up, to your rose and the little prince, as you show up and really get to know that part of yourself, that really deep inner child part of yourself, and know why you feel the things that you feel and have the reactions that you have, that truth will surface. And I deeply believe that truth will be very emotional to you in the same way that anything that is true is.
And if you are worried because you've always held your feelings down, and I'm sure those are the conscious and unconscious messages you've received from your family and your upbringing, another good hack in terms of inner child work is to go back to that kid who clearly, every child has natural raw emotions that was shoving them down, and say, hey, honey, I know you were told that this is not cool, that it's not, we don't feel that. I'm here. I'm going to listen. Tell me what it was like to be you. Such a great hack into emotion. We have a joke at Omega that when we do our inner child morning, I don't always ask it because I usually see them out, but this year I didn't see the tissue boxes out in different places around the room. And I'm like, do we have enough tissues? And everyone's like, oh, great. But it does tend to bring the emotions.
Yeah, I mean, these, I could just continue, but I think I'm going to move on a little bit from
Yeah.
the how do I get to the feelings to letting go of emotion after meditation. So what is the best way to let go of anger after you journal speak for the day, even after the meditation?
Well, I think you've called up good thing, bad thing, who knows?
Mhm.
So if anybody heard the podcast recently on my wing, I think it was 2 podcasts ago. I talked about the parable, good thing, bad thing, who knows? So if you haven't checked out that podcast, go ahead and listen to it. It'll give you a more robust understanding of what I'm about to say. But like, the reason we're angry most of the time is because we feel wronged. We feel like something happened to us and that outcome is bad, and that
And
is
undeserved.
undeserved. So there's justice, injustice, feelings of that. There's self-pity. There's feeling like discarded maybe by others. So all of that is important. You don't want to bypass that. But then once you've really felt it, I love the parable of good thing, bad thing, who knows? Because what if? What if you needed that person to be exactly that mean, wrong, bad, to give you a sense of what you think is right in this world, how you want to be? And I know this, I feel like this is walks the line of being dangerously like, everything happens for a reason. It is not that. That's why I really encourage you to go back and listen to the podcast, because the parable is very powerful about truly, we do not know what we need. And when we can sit with I don't need what I think I need, and who knows what is out there. In Buddhism, they say the obstacles in the path are the path. Who knows what obstacles I need to live my best life? Maybe I needed this lesson. Maybe it will reveal itself a year down the line. So that's how I diffuse my anger. Is I just I've fully felt it, and now I'm opening to, I'm going to stay curious about why that needed to happen, about what I needed to learn. It's more than it works, it's truth. And anybody who has been in a relationship or raised a child or seen something from the long view knows, oh, I see. If that hadn't happened to her, she would not be prepared for blank.
Yeah, I
You
think
know?
the reframe really happens. And again, I just think journal speak in developing self-understanding also makes you more understanding that everybody has their story.
Mhm.
So if
Sure.
you can reframe and know that that person probably comes from their
Yes.
family of origin and all of their experiences and their triggers, and we're all kind of stuck in our story, and aren't we lucky that we actually have a tool that enables us to not carry it and have it be so toxic to our system that we can
Yes.
just let it go. Okay. This is a good one, I think. How do I focus on my fears of falling back? I've recently done a healing week, which has resulted in fantastic improvement. Despite the fact that I now feel wonderful, I keep having this feeling that I might lose it, all my progress. How can I use JournalSpeak to focus on the positives instead of the possible negatives?
Well, the first answer I have is we don't ever try to focus on the positive. You can't. That is the worst spiritual bypassing. You can embrace it as it comes, but when the fear comes, if you don't listen to it, it just sets a fire. And then you've got another one to put out that's going to be in the form of some other symptom flare. So, first answer I have to this question is be with what is. Having said that, do you want to talk a little bit about ascension? Because I think that's appropriate here in terms of you never really fall back to the
Yes.
beginning.
Yes. So once you've done what Nicole, I think, is indicating that you all are welcome. It's the Rumi's guest house. It's the Ram Dass, the little schmooze. It's your
It's
kindergarten
IFS,
bus. It's
no
IFS,
no bad parts.
all of the things that we talk about. Everyone is welcome. They don't get to pick the route. They don't get to pick the snacks. They don't get to drive, but they're in the back of the bus with you. Once you've accepted all of them in, then I think that you can look at this metaphor of ascension that will help you know that you are never sliding back to where you began. That although you may feel like you're seeing certain things again and again, because you are in fact moving in a circle, if you envision a mountain ascending around and
Yes.
up, around and up, around and up, and you can feel like you're moving in a circle, but it's only by looking from any particular point back and down that you see that you're not really where you were. And as you become familiar with these tools, as you immerse yourself in this work, and more than anything, as you do what we're all doing right now, which is sit in community and hear everyone's questions are, in fact, our own. Everyone's stories are, reminiscent of our own. You will see that you are not broken, that you are not alone, though the pain may be isolating, that we all suffer the same, and we are all using a practice that will allow us to ascend gradually, little by slowly, getting, more and more familiar with ourselves, using our bodies as our proof, healing each time, and each time growing more deep in our belief that this is the way it works, that it will never end because we are human and pain is part of the human condition, but that chronic pain is a result of the fear and the fuel and the meaning that we assign all of these things when we don't know what they are. And because we do know what they are, and we turn on the light and we look at them and we reveal the truth that we are all moving up the mountain.
Yes. And so another thing I say that's sort of similar to that, but it's a little bit of a technological example, is if you picture a kid playing a video game, and let's say the video game has 30 worlds, and when you finish the 30th world, you're king of the world. I don't know. Usually what they do, and I think it's to not discourage children, is after you've reached level 10, if you die between level 10 and 20, the worst you could do is go down to level 10. You don't go down to the first level. There are different iterations that you can go down to. So the reason I'm saying this to you is specifically to this question. I think it's good. Specifically to this question is you've had a great week. No matter what happens, there have been neural pathways in your brain that have been rewritten where your fear and your attachment to your symptoms cannot possibly be as strong. So you might, through fear and through concern and worry, fall back into a flare. Just like in ascension theory, when you're going up the mountain, you're going to land here potentially, and you're going to say, I'm exactly where I used to be. And maybe you're in a similar place, but you're not on that lower rung. You're up here. You've learned
and
something.
You've looked and
you're
changed your
different.
reaction to it. You're not panicking because of it.
And maybe right now it sounds like this person's rather new. So maybe you are panicking a little. So you say, who's in there panicking? All of these questions are fertile ground for curiosity in your JournalSpeak. Who in my past, what version of me got so excited that something was different and then was just blindsided and disappointed? Where is their trauma in believing that I could be okay? And then going there and having compassion and writing about how that was for you, because that's the stuff that's getting stuck. It's the feeling, it's the fear attached to a similar trigger. The reason that triggers are called triggers is because something rather banal today can feel really big, but it's not because of today. It's because of something that it's reminding you of that was very dire. And most things in childhood feel very dire because we are completely controlled by others, parents, coaches, teachers, whatever. And we didn't have power to make our own choices. And so that's a survival fear. That's a deep panic. And when you're feeling that deep panic today, oftentimes there's more to the story.
Okay, here we are with Kelly. I've been regularly doing JournalSpeak for 6 months, not daily. I started off with the 30-day challenge, which we should tell everyone about, because that's a good one. And since then, I've journal spoken 4 to 6 times a week. I feel I have patience and kindness for myself and belief, but my symptoms aren't going away. Maybe I'll have a lower symptom day, but it's not consistent. What gives? How long should this keep going on without my concern that it won't work for me? And of course, the question we get often, are there people it doesn't work for?
So I'm going to start with the last question first. I imagine in the wide world of ours, there are people this doesn't work for. And similar to addiction recovery, it is people who are completely unable to be honest with themselves. There must, depending on certain levels of personality disorders, certain levels of narcissism, I'm just being honest, there are human beings in the world who truly, truly cannot take any responsibility, cannot feel the nuance, the way in which we as humans interact with the world. I would say that is probably 0.2 of the entire population. I think this works for certainly every single person in our community because you've thought enough to even enter in.
Right.
So,
Once you come through the door, that the percentage goes drastically down. I'm sure that the percentage is much higher outside of this garden that, of people that do not want to look at truth, that do not want to get well.
But to me, this question is not people that are blocked.
Right.
To this
Yes.
is, are there people this does not work for,
Yes.
which to
who
me
are actually engaged in doing it.
notes that they
Yes.
are trying, and
Yes.
I say almost
Yeah.
never.
Agree.
So what I'm saying is, first of all, feel safe in that you are certain you're not an anomaly. This is going to work for you, and I'm going to speak directly to you, Kelly. This is going to work for you, but there is something missing, and I know this because I've just been doing this for 25 years. That when somebody has consistently shown up for the work for 6 months and is not really seeing a drastic reduction in symptoms, there is a piece that is maybe not completely missing, not missing enough to get into your conscious mind, but it's in there. And I would like you to gently be curious about what I'm about to say. There's somewhere in you that really doesn't fully believe. Maybe it's, your MRI just looks a little too real, or your mother had this symptom and your grandmother before her, or, it just doesn't make sense because my IBS is always after I drink coffee, or, whatever it is that you have. Remember, you don't have complete control over the brain. The brain makes connections, and those connections are neural pathways. They fire together. And so what we're doing in JournalSpeak is we're helping rewire. So there's something going on that either is under the umbrella of belief that you are, it's like this, just this annoying little gnawing part of you that is there, if you're honest with yourself, that says, I don't know if this is really the answer for me. There's that. There's also the possibility that people love to say, oh, no, I practice self-compassion. It's harder than you think. It's also brain conditioning. I was very, very clearly conditioned in my childhood not to be compassionate to myself, because if I wanted to connect with my father, I needed to really look at myself in a very judgmental way. And I know that now in the rear view. At the time, all I thought was, I'm always a disappointment. That was the way it landed for me. But that needed unpacking. And so all I'm saying is real compassion that we get to, it's a practice, is being able to say, I really am scared this isn't going to work for me, and I can just be with that.
Yeah.
Those legs of the stool. Remember why we call this 3 legs of a stool, because think about a stool. Without one of the legs, it does not stand. And I have great, not only hope, but knowing this is going to work for you, but sometimes you have to drop into an even deeper level of acceptance and of acknowledgement of where you're still doubting, or where you're still, or, and this is the final thing I'll say, how desperately, Kelly, do you want to be better? Because I'm going to say something that people hate when I say, but it is the capital T truth. Desire to be different than you are is read by your nervous system as fear. If you're like, oh God, what's wrong with me? I have to get better, or I need to be better for this. Dumping into the reservoir. When you say, however this goes, it's okay for me. I'm going to show up to that JournalSpeak, see what happens. I wonder what's going to happen. It's a very different energy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking about the people that I know that aren't like fully committed to this. They are generally people who don't really deeply immerse themselves in the brain science. They think that this is kind of like a lighter sort of
Nice to have
self-help,
instead
like,
of a need to
oh,
have.
maybe I'll JournalSpeak because it's like a, you know, like a nice add-on, but I'm still
Right.
going to go to all my doctors, and the hard science versus the soft science that they might see this as. And I think that that generates from a misunderstanding of what
Right.
this is.
Because this is the hardest science of all.
And this is not a like, that's why I always sort of have a problem with the word believe. Like I almost
know.
want it to be understand. If you understand the way the mind-body system works, you'll believe it because it's math. I mean, it's the
Right.
same as like, do you believe that 2
In
times 2 is
calculus,
4,
right?
right? I mean, it's not about you believing it, it's about your understanding it. I think that people do still see this as like some kind of like psychosomatic, I made myself, you know, do this. And it just results from all of the a compounding
conditioning that we've
of
had.
misinformation and a genuine, right. It's counterintuitive to the way that we grew up believing and understanding.
Yeah.
The way that symptoms are treated.
Exactly. So if you find yourself in a position where you're like, why am I not getting better? The biggest hack I have is stop wanting to get better. And people are like, what do you mean? I've been suffering for 20 years. And I say, I know. And I know with like,
and look at the studies.
Bottomless
look at the studies in the
compassion.
book, right? I mean, I suggest I've done that. I've like immersed myself in, you know,
reread the
our
stories.
colleague
Yeah.
Gigi, you know, works at studies at Oxford, and you know is immersed in all of the scientific studies and all of the neuroscience that has really caught up to where we are now. And you can pour over data and people that are cured, you know, by this. So
whatever it takes. And sometimes just asking the question is half the battle, because you just don't want to feel like you're alone. You just don't want to feel like, am I the only person that this isn't working for? So just this is why we have community.
Yeah.
Be here,
Yeah.
say it over and over again. And then while you're saying it, locate who's really scared. I can't tell you how many times I have any number of feelings, and when I just stop for a second, it makes complete sense why this is so inflamed for me. And going back to understanding and perspective, and then being with that part of myself is the answer.
And nothing moves so slowly as time while you're watching the clock. Like, I really do encourage everyone to take their eye off the clock and to, you know, really stick to the program, you know, show up and do your JournalSpeak, do it with the right energy, without the desperation, without the fear, with the real curiosity leading you through the process. And one day you'll just notice, oh, you know what, I didn't take my migraine shot.
That was happy for
It
me.
was shocking to me. Like it literally, like I forgot entirely to take my monthly migraine medication, and I was about 2 weeks into the next month.
And at the beginning, and then you took it. You were like, shit. And I go, take it if you want to
no,
take it at the very
I
beginning.
took
And
it
then like,
for a while when I first knew you, but then once I missed it and really didn't need it and started to like understand that it all sort of came together for me, because I realized that it was no longer about my migraine. I didn't need to own that condition. I could have a headache and I could understand likely where it came from.
Yeah, and that's another really big thing. I know that we're kind of almost out of time, but I want to say this and then
Yeah.
maybe you want to get to one more
We're
question.
done.
Oh,
And we have a couple of like.
okay, great. Okay, well then I think this is a really good one to close on. We are a society, and this is also very human, like sort of like the way we all are pack animals, where once we decide that we're a member of something, it's a comfort. And I know that many people are like, I'm a migrainer, or I've always had this, or yeah, my back's been bad since I had that accident, or my knee's been bad since high school when I had that sports injury. And whether you think so or not, there is some level of comfort in this is one of the things I have, and this is me. And the human brain does not like the upsetting of the apple cart of like the this is me. It doesn't want to redefine it because that is a place of unfamiliarity. And so I just think it's important to hear what Lisa said, which is she still gets headaches now and then. They are almost always associated with something that she can easily put her finger on. Like, I know why this is happening right now. But having said that, the biggest shift I saw in you is when you stopped saying, I'm a person who suffers from migraine. You were just like, yeah, I get a headache once in a while.
Right.
It's my symptom
Right.
imperative. Too bad, so sad. I'll get it or I won't. I'll take a Advil or I won't, and that's the energy.
Changing your story.
That's however it goes. It's okay for me. And that's when the brain, by the way, is your biggest defender. It wants to change when it feels safe. And so if you rewrite that neural pathway and then you're happy living your best life, adding all those positive, those soothe factors, all that serotonin and all that good stuff, oxytocin, your brain goes, oh yeah, okay, well, we just don't have that anymore. And that's where you find the success stories on the podcast and in the book.
Yeah.
What do you think? Did we do a good job?
Yeah, I mean, we have like a couple of
I
elements,
think
but
I think we really covered it. And I think
and I
that
think that we will, you know what?
the
Tell us-
conversation
Let us
continues.
know how you feel about this and if there's anything that we didn't cover. And I can't imagine that we will not be continually revisiting this topic and evolving it. I often play with the idea of doing a journal speaking like interactive workshop where we can share journal speak if anyone's brave enough. And you and I do that with each other. We share some journal speak. I mean, it's interesting. So we will explore it. We definitely want to hear from you as always. And we're very grateful for to be in community with you, all of you, because you ask wonderful questions
You do.
and you support each other. And I wish that I could have been watching the chat because I feel like I missed that.
I know, but we by the way, we always get the recording so we can watch the chat after and we can take a look. And I also want to remind you that if you want to interact with us into this process, go to the Nicole Sachs Support Circle. Everybody on this call has access to that group. It's in all of the reminder emails. It's in the orientation video for the BreakAwake membership and with the Heal with Nicole. And ask questions there. And then when Ashley, who is our technology person, she's going to post there and ask the question for the next boot camp. Interact, ask us, and we are going to we're going to be with you. And this recording will be up in the next day or so in your BreakAwake member portal.
We
Good
love
to
you
be with
all.
you.
Love you all.
Till next time.
Thank you for the
Thank
hearts.
you.